Hello.
Hey,
Hi, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I think I'm figuring this out, but I'm not sure.
I've never done this before, so I
I'm
think you're doing
gonna
great.
invite some more folks here.
Okay.
Let's see. Hello.
Hey,
Hi, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good. How about you? Hey, it's
Good.
us.
Whoa. I think I'm figuring this out, but I'm not sure. That's
I've
weird.
never done this before.
Uh-oh. Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
it
Let's.
was recording us.
Yeah, that's strange. Who else? Aaron. How did you join, Deborah?
It rang, and I just answered the video call.
Okay. Let's see if this works. There's Dave. Let's see who else. Caitlin, Jonathan, and Aaron. How are things in? You're in Detroit, right?
Grand Rapids, actually. They're good. It snowed today, just a little
Wow.
bit. I know. Grand Rapids. Who's peeking in?
My wife Jenny.
Hello. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Huh. Let's It's not letting me invite people that want to.
Well, do they have to already be on?
Because I was already logged in.
Oh, that might be it. Something
And I
else.
wasn't sure if I was going to get that invitation separately from the other event that I could see.
Okay.
Are you on Eastern time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if I comment or if you comment. Oh, there's Dave.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. How's it going?
Good. How are you? We're
Good.
just sorting out whether you have to already be logged into Hangouts to accept the video call. Do you know?
I think you might have to be. So it's funny. Kind of what was set up first is it's like a YouTube broadcasting. So like I
Mm-hmm.
see you guys talking for a while, and like it's basically presentable to everyone. Um, yeah,
That's
I'm
how we're
not.
famous.
Yeah, don't say anything mean now. So, um,
So I'll post a little note that says, or ask people to log in.
yeah, I think they do. I really do think they have to be in GChat um, before they I guess before they sign on, before they accept the message. So if you just want to like post on Facebook or something like, hey, like the book discussion has started, so like it's like a live broadcasting right now, which it is. In order to log on, you need to accept like an invitation to join. So
Great.
I'm not sure if they have to be like Google Friends with you, Google Plus Friends.
I went through and added a bunch of people, so hopefully that's not the issue.
I'll put a message in the group also, just the general group.
Thank you so much.
How are things in Boston?
Good.
Yeah.
I heard that you were talking about the snow, Grand Rapids. Yeah, it's been good. We're moving offices on Wednesday, so that'll be fun making that move. And it's finally it's finally warming up a little bit. So it's raining a lot today, and all the snow is melting. Okay. No Durango though.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, did
excited?
you buy your tickets out here yet, or what?
What did you say?
Did you buy your tickets out here yet?
I can dream. I can dream for a while doing it. It's funny. One of my earliest mentors. I worked in a running store in St. Louis, and the owner of that running store actually was at the half marathon. He was like, "I saw these Janji guys, these two Janji guys up front, like wearing singlet." I was like, "Oh yeah." That was cool.
Yeah, that was fun to run together, and they just sent out the race photos today, and there's a bunch of them of Graham and I just like staggered right next to each other. And
Nice.
photos.
That's so cool.
So no, has anyone responded on the Facebook?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, Benaron.
I would check, but I actually blocked Facebook on my computer. It's anti-distraction.
That's good
Smart.
thinking.
Yet you still notice I post a lot, so I have to just check my phone like aggressively. Hold on one sec. Sorry.
So Jonathan Kate Snyder. Yeah, it doesn't show people, it looks like, unless they're logged in.
Yeah, let me just call Jonathan.
I'll put. They give me this link option. Maybe I'll put that up on the.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just that people, because when I first tried to access this, I just clicked the play on that video, but now that ends up being what we're seeing on YouTube, right?
Hey man, are you gonna join the book chat at all? Okay, cool, dude. We were just checking. We're just trying to see if you. No, dude, please don't. Cool, man. Let's get
Right,
around.
here we go.
Aaron joined. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay, you did it! Got your message.
Alright, take care. Let's definitely get that running soon.
It works off that link that you put, that last link where you said, or try this,
Oh, cool.
on Facebook.
Okay.
Hey, Aaron. What's going on?
Yay.
Hey!
So is it Sunday right now in Australia, or what's going on?
It's Friday.
2016.
Hey!
Awesome. I'm glad the link worked. And I'm glad you were able to join us 12 hours away.
Yeah. Once we get over the technical difficulties.
We're getting there.
All right.
Hey, Mike's here.
Yay!
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey everyone.
Day right now in Australia, or what's going on?
Wait, is everything really delayed?
Yeah, it like looped over.
I'm glad the link worked. Yeah, that's what got me, and I was watching you guys for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, what?
Okay, I don't know why that loops.
Alright.
Mike's here.
Hey, Mike, in the background, you have I think the video playing. Yep, that should solve it.
There's John. Whoa.
Hey,
Alright, we're getting there.
where's your Eagles hat? You got a Pats hat on?
Yeah, I'm past that. I actually grew up in New Hampshire.
Damn. Wait, Mike just left. You're in New Hampshire?
I grew up in New Hampshire.
Oh, right. All right, so Mike's back on. Are we waiting for anyone else, or Scott, did you want to get
Lori said she'd be a little late. Justin said she'd be a little late. We need Nicole and Caitlin Schneider.
Some people might just be a little bit on the later side. Is it worth? Do you want to wait a little bit longer?
We can kind of jump in. Who was the other one? Oh, Nicole.
It's pretty cool, but this is kind of meeting you guys first. Everyone's kind of meeting each other for the first time in a virtual person, I guess. So really awesome. Should we?
There she is. Okay, let me invite Nicole. Okay, and then we can get going. You can't hear anything, Mike? That's not gonna work. Okay. Okay. Are your mic speakers on?
Can't hear anything.
Okay. Oh, lost my.
Yeah, I think he's gonna just jump back on.
Okay. Well, let's just kind of jump in and see maybe if would you guys. I know some people have finished the book or read it before, but just say where you're at in the book real quick, just so we don't have any spoilers.
Who do you want to? I can start. I finished it. I'm not gonna spoil anything for people who haven't yet.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through, but I kind of have an idea of the finish anyways.
You said a quarter, Jonathan?
About 3/4.
3/4. Okay.
I think I've read it 3 or 4 times now. It's a favorite.
Awesome.
I'm slacking off. I'm up to chapter 18. I'm sorry.
Great, that's great.
No worries. Mike, are you with us? You guys?
Well, I know Mike's on mute right now.
Yeah, he'll
Oh
mute
yeah.
the picture.
Yeah, I don't think it's any of the settings. Yeah.
Will we come to the book discussion? Here's
Yeah,
Bailey the cat at the book discussion. Hello.
How far is the book along? The cat.
Bailey's read it twice.
So should we assume just kind of goes up to chapter 18?
yeah, we'll try and keep it there, and then hopefully, some of the themes are starting to stand out, even if you aren't all the way through. And I think, I was talking to Dave and Deborah about it, and that's really the kind of intent is just kind of look at the themes and try and, like we looked at with the quotes, try and glean some wisdom from it, try and have it affect kind of how we see things, and then hopefully drive us to some action and to get involved somewhere. So I think that we can do that by just kind of jumping in. I have some discussion questions that I got from the author's website, so I'll throw those out there too. But one of the things right off the bat that seems to be kind of a conflict in the main character's life is this sense of identity, and then it's played out by the identity cards for the Hutu and the Tutsi, and he is forced into this situation where to kind of continue down the track he's on, he needs to decide if he's willing to, I wouldn't say compromise, but kind of hide his identity so that he's safe. So I just wanted to maybe think about that a little bit, and then think about if we're ever in a situation like that, which hopefully it's never that dramatic. But what would be your response to that? How would you handle that? Jenny?
I felt like I related to him, just like when he was going through that decision. I felt like I could understand the conflict, and I was really relieved when people in his family even were like, "Of course you have to do that," and that was just my take on it. And like I could understand him feeling really guilty, but I could also see that, like, I don't think he was rejecting his identity or anything. I think he was just he was sort of forced into it.
Yeah, it's funny when I read a lot of coming of age novels and teach them. I'm an English teacher, so I teach a lot of coming of age novels, and I find it interesting, like talking about the symbolism of the ID, and most of these coming of age novels, it's a lot of discussion about what they identify with, how they identify, how they come to those identities and everything. I thought it was really neat in this novel. So, where I'm at is that is the central crux of it all. Is that it's not just finding an identity; it's finding an identity, but also at the same time that identity is being questioned outright. It's not just a matter of who am I, what am I doing, but it's also, he seems to have a firm grasp on that. It's more about his identity is being questioned from the outside, not from the inside. In this case.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting because almost everyone here, all the central characters, really did wrestle between identities. I mean, you had people who were Hutu and Tutsi, right? And B, right? That was her?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, B. I mean, she was. I'm sorry if I'm giving anything away. I don't think I am. Yeah, she was both, and it was kind of hidden for a while. And I mean, that kind of speaks to society as a whole. Like, everyone's a little bit Tutsi, everyone's a little Hutu, even though they definitely bifurcated to two what they think are two very different groups. And I thought it was a very nice symbolic point to the story. So. By the way, I like everyone's Janji gear that they have on. So, yeah.
Who's talking, I think.
Yeah, so can you get the Peru shirt? Yeah. Mike, I think we got you. Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
Mike.
And he's gone.
Oh no.
Deborah, Aaron, any thoughts?
I was thinking it was interesting to me that JP as a young man didn't really understand how it was almost arbitrary, the Hutu and Tutsi, among some of the adults. I mean, it wasn't arbitrary because it was important, but they realized that if you had the right connections, someone would look the other way, even though you obviously were one or the other. So he had this struggle to whether or not to take the card or not and to use it, whereas I'm struggling for my words. I could see that the adults kind of are like, to get through this or in this environment, these words and these identities have an impact, and then they also can just be kind of swept aside if you have those connections. So it kind of broke my heart that he had to struggle so hard with something that in that political environment. Yeah, I'm struggling to find my words, but you'll get used to me in book discussions. My mouth never seems to quite catch up with my brain.
No, I understand.
I think you're right on too, because there was, I think with the whole Olympics thing, and then like John Patrick's dad was really all about we're Rwandans, we're not Hutu or Tutsi, and like felt like that's really what he wanted to get to, and he wanted to be identified by his running and his accomplishments and more just as a Rwandan, and not, like you're saying, in some sense arbitrary or historical kind of lineage, but come together for that bigger purpose. So I thought that was cool. And John Patrick always seemed to really like, I don't want to talk about politics, I don't want to talk about Hutu or Tutsi, I just want to run, I just want to, love this girl and, and married, and I don't want to worry about all this chaos that's around us. And so I thought that was it seemed like there was some intentionality there on the author's part to show that. So
I like how the novel starts when he's young, and when you're young, his identity questions are so simple. It's like, there's no gray area. It's black or white. Either you are, you aren't. It doesn't really matter. He just wants to run. It doesn't matter all these other things at the beginning part. And I like that it starts there, and then really as he gets older, he really just holds on to that. He doesn't get older in his thoughts. Everybody else makes it all complicated. To him, it's always just, well, I have my running. I want to do this. That's all I identify with, and I like how he kind of keeps that almost childhood innocence about him. And even the way he runs, the whole point is that when he runs, he just goes all out. He just hangs on. That's why the 800 meters is so perfect, because he's just like, I'm just gonna go, and that's always when his identity is just that sort of childlike mentality.
I think also the one thing that I liked was his struggle, how even though he had this ID card, he still looked the same, and he had those features that somehow no one else seemed to look at, but as soon as he had that ID card that showed he was something else, he was more accepted, even though he looked and had the features of the other group.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some, I haven't dug into it as much as I could, but that whole history and the colonial era and when Belgium came in and accentuated, hey, Mike's on.
Hey, everyone.
Hey!
Sorry.
We got the philosopher here now, so you can just lead the discussion.
Yeah, right. As long as I don't repeat what's already been said that I already missed.
You said you finished the book, Mike?
Yeah, I pounded like 150 pages this morning.
Mike, where are you right now?
I'm in Chicago at my parents' house.
And then you're rolling out to Flagstaff soon?
Yeah, Monday we're heading to Flagstaff.
So tell everyone what kind of your plan is and what you've been doing.
Yeah, so my wife and I just moved out from Boston a few days ago, and then we're sort of dropping stuff in the Midwest, heading to Flagstaff for a few months, and then just kind of waiting on applications and job stuff to see whether we end up here or overseas or what. So kind of transitional, but kind of fun too.
So where overseas?
So we're looking at going to Kenya, Eldoret in particular.
Oh, wow.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, hopefully it works out at some point. So.
Through an aid organization, or?
Yeah, so my wife is a pharmacist, and she did a rotation there as a pharmacy student, and then I'd be looking to teach there. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Durango might be on your way to Flagstaff.
What's that?
Durango, Colorado might be on your way to Flagstaff.
Yeah, I think it might be, and if not, it's close for when we're there. So I was thinking the same thing earlier.
Sweet. Yeah, come by. We have a guest room if you need a break in the road trip. So,
Cool. Thanks. Might take you up on that.
all right.
Hey, Lauren.
And Lori's here.
Hey!
Yay!
Oh, the group's getting bigger. I think Justin will come in a little bit, but for Lori and Mike, the first kind of question was about what I posted on Facebook earlier about identity and kind of understanding the conflict that John Patrick had, and thinking about the Hutu or the Tutsi card and how to fit with that kind of the cultural divide there and pursue his dreams and ensure his safety, but also stay true to who he was. And so we were just kind of talking about that and what we would do in that situation. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I just had a quick question before I spoiled anything for anyone. Are we doing the whole book, or are we just doing the first 18?
Aaron is at 18. Lori, where are you at?
I finished the whole book.
I think we're gonna.
Aaron, you're calling from Australia.
You know what? This is so bad. I work for an e-reading company too, and I haven't even read the whole thing. Like, I am like doing a disservice to my company.
That's
Oh.
So we'll try and avoid big spoilers and just maybe talk about bigger themes or themes that are already revealing themselves in the first part of the book. And then we'll let Aaron catch up and maybe do a wrap-up run in a few weeks.
Yeah, that sounds good. One thing that I guess it's something that goes through the whole book, but also relates to him taking the card is I like how she sort of made the categories seem a little bit fluid as the book went on, which I thought was, I don't know, was an interesting commentary just on the situation as a whole. You know, in the midst of these categories meaning life and death for people, the ability to make them a little more fluid, not only for Jean Patrick but for others too, I thought was interesting and helped to show the, I don't know, sort of the lack of justification for the policies that were in place.
Yeah. Good point. Laura, did you have any thoughts, or?
Sorry, I didn't even hear the first question.
So it seemed like a big emphasis is John Patrick's identity, and so if you were in that, any thoughts about that? Just him wrestling with taking the Hutu card, his family's reaction, those types of things.
I think that I think I would have taken the card in his situation. I mean, he was trying to make a better life for himself and the situation that he's in, and I think anyone in that country at that time probably would have tried to, you know, to get by the best way they could.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Jonathan was saying, like, his identity, you know, something that was a lot of young adults kind of face this issue, and they're trying to find their identity. And his identity really was as not as one of these two groups, but as a runner, and that allowed him to be a runner. So, yeah.
Cool. Is Nicole on now?
I am. Can you hear me?
Hey,
Hi.
we can
Welcome.
hear you but not see you.
Oh, I'm kind of a Google Chat Hangout novice. I can configure. I'm sure I can configure it.
All right. Okay, so the next thought, let's just look at the title of the book, Running the Rift. Probably have a lot of different meanings. What do you think the author was shooting for there? Don't be shy.
Well, the literal is the Great Rift Valley.
Oh, yeah.
Where was that? Rift Valley?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's
Refers to the region, doesn't it, of the area that we're on, that lake in that area, and the rift. And I think again the obvious like geological meaning of it, kind of the symbolic, I guess, probably going into the rift between the two groups. That symbolism, I would think, but just kind of borrowing off the geology in the region of the rift of the valley that the lake, that region is kind of identified as.
yeah. And he was really, the whole time, he was really running in between the two. Like, he wasn't on necessarily either side. He was really within the rift itself.
Right.
Do we have Mike on twice, or is it just me? Am I just imagining things?
I think you're
No, we have twice. Yeah.
Sorry.
still like
Like two images of you.
Like you just called me yourself.
It just kicked me off because my connection was bad or something, so I guess it doubled me now when I came back home.
You have to speak twice as much now, so.
All right.
One, like two, any thoughts? So that kind of leads into a second question or a follow-up. And I posted that article. It's a really interesting read if you get a chance to read it. But obviously, we're all interested in running. The running's a theme throughout the book. How does running play into the book, and what role does it play in John Patrick's outlook and anything related to how that influences the themes and the narrative in the book?
Go ahead. Okay.
I'm only thinking something first. You just keep putting me on like I have something to say. It seems to be his sanity. I think kind of seems like almost his escape also, and just kind of part of his hope. I don't think it's his ultimate hope, but a way to stay focused on something positive and good in the midst of and it seems to spread to other people, and they call him Mr. Olympics, and it seems like it kind of gets other people out of a bad funk just to see him even.
I also think it keeps him grounded to the earth, like keeps him very much rooted in Rwanda, and especially all of the references he would have with his brother, his brother chasing him, and this is the spot where my brother caught me, and I think it's very much ingrained in who he is and obviously who he became and turned into. But I every time I think of him running, I think of him more of being like rooted with the earth, grounded to his homeland kind of a thing.
I like that we did that assignment, I call it, the little contest thing we did with the quotes, because that one of the quotes that someone had put on there, that you can outdistance that which is running after you, but not what is running inside you. I think that kind of exemplifies a lot of that theme, that idea that the running is just kind of one big metaphor for what's going on. Like what she just said about how not just being grounded to the earth, but just what they're chasing, and he's always everything seems to be a race for him, right from the moment everything began. Is always trying to either chase or be chased, and it's all about sort of winning that chase in the end, and he's always trying to stay out in the head. So that running, he's out running away from some of the genocide problems, the Rwandan problems, but inside, he's still trying to wrestle with going back to identity issue, but the running kind of just, I think, a good extended metaphor for how he's sort of compensating and sort of dealing with those identity issues, and it's kind of the same idea, that it's always about trying to win, come out on top in the end.
Yeah, and going off that point, it's running is something very straightforward. I mean, literally straightforward. Like you're just running ahead. You don't have to think about what's around you, what's behind you, and I think that also kind of ties in with this whole fluid, extremely uncertain world. Kind of ties in with I think the professor was Jonathan, right? Who
Yeah.
is, by no coincidence, a geology professor, right? Literally studying things that don't move, studying things that don't change that quickly, things that are that are really the opposite of fluid. And he throughout the book, he definitely finds more and more of a connection to the rock, the surface geology itself. Simply because the whole world around him is changing so rapidly, he just finds himself caught in a very uncertain middle.
Another role that I thought it played was it sort of exemplified something that I think you posted, Scott, in the Facebook group that the author had written about how she does some of her best writing when she's running. And I think throughout the book we see like Jean Patrick doing that too, like running to clear his head, going over physics problems, like all the time just going and running when he needs to think straight. And I think that's something that probably a lot of us can identify with too, just sort of, and it evolves, right, that eventually that might be the most important part of it for him and for others too, that sort of transcends the physical aspect of it.
Yeah, it seemed like there were very deliberate kind of increases in tension, and then it would kind of shift gears, and he would be like on the track doing a workout or running through the forest, or having to get out and clear his head, like you were saying. And I thought, the author did a good job, like building that tension, and then showing how like running can serve as that release valve, or time to kind of mull things over a little bit more. So,
Absolutely.
I also think that the running for him gave him obviously the greater goal, so he didn't feel the need to contribute. Where we saw all the attacks were occurring with the young boys themselves. So I guess growing up in that sort of conflict, the young boys would join, whereas he obviously wanted to go to the Olympics and didn't feel the need to contribute at all.
good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Was anyone else surprised that he never ran to take out anger? I guess that was something that like struck me throughout. That I mean, if I was in his situation, I feel like I would have gone out and just like pounded when I was angry at something, And he never seemed to do that. I just thought that was interesting.
I feel like the author never really talked about his anger. Like he never seemed anger. He never like seemed angry at all. So I think had she kind of developed that part in his character, then maybe he would have taken it out running. But since that kind of wasn't really part of his character in the novel, then we missed that part of it.
Yeah, he was pretty calm in the midst of some pretty crazy stuff, for sure.
Did any of you get frustrated with him because of that? Because he didn't get angry or didn't seem to really see what was going, or I think he saw what was going on, but didn't really, like, in contrast to Bee and how politically involved she was and how strongly she was reacting to everything that was happening. I loved him as a character, but sometimes I got frustrated with him and thought, come on.
I actually. Oh, sorry, you go.
I almost thought it was almost the opposite. I almost found it kind of refreshing sometimes that, again, I think going back to the point I made before, that's almost a childlike mentality that he has. That in some extent you could call it naive, but the other hand, it's almost like ignorance is bliss too at the same time. And I feel like it's almost refreshing that, again, for him everything is so straightforward. It's just I want to run. I don't want to look at it this way. It's just for me it's this way and that's it. And I almost found it refreshing instead.
Yeah. I also took it that, I mean, a lot of his anger, like whether political or whatever, didn't stem because he didn't really have sort of a central male figure. He had multiple male figures, but because he was always at school and changing school and going back to his uncle, he didn't have one constant that was feeding him sort of any negative information. He sort of had sources. So I guess my thing is he didn't really have an opinion to be frustrated on, since he didn't have a steady stream of, I guess, propaganda or whatnot through the whole conflict.
No, like his main focus was just dreaming of the Olympics, and so the way I saw it, even though sometimes I did get frustrated with him for being kind of, this dreamy way out there kind of guy when, machetes are in the streets and people are being hacked to pieces, and I'm like, what the hell, get it together, open your eyes. But that kind of childlike quality, I don't know if it was really childlike for me, but it was definitely this dreaminess of, having his eye on the goal and kind of not necessarily being present in what was happening, but what, the dreams that he had kind of a thing.
That makes sense to me. It kind of broke my heart, too, knowing that his beautiful, pure goal of running in the Olympics also would serve to put a good face on Rwanda during this time so that if they could get him to that event, hey world, look, we have athletes at the Olympics. Pay no attention to what's happening on the ground. So
He just see, we're not that bad.
Yeah.
A big
And as we know from the way things played out, so many parts of the world, including the United States, didn't acknowledge what was happening or weren't willing to fully describe or accept what was going on.
Yeah, I think that plays into, and I think we'll hold off on it for Aaron's sake now, but the coach's character is super interesting as what we learn about him towards the end, Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep reading, but at the moment I can't figure him out. Like, sometimes I like him, sometimes I hate him. Like, I'm just...
He's a character.
Yeah.
How much longer? How much more do you have to go? I'm not quite done either. I'll tell you. I'm
halfway.
I'm on 25. Is where I am.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so we'll hold off on that one. Something to look forward to on the next discussion. But I think that plays into Jean Patrick's a little bit of naivety, where these things are happening all around him, and when he goes and he runs in the race and then goes to the palace and things, and he's just he's got this simple outlook on life, which is refreshing and frustrating. That's cool that we have both of those perspectives in the group. Cool.
There's also something said for, you go back to the beginning when, even though it wasn't a very long influence, but there's obviously a strong influence of his father. And I think he's got this sort of steadfast, the whole thing with the connection with the journal and all that stuff. He has this connection to his father and that belief that his father had, that there is no difference, and wanting to sort of keep, whether people, obviously the uncle thinks the father is naive and so forth, but I think he wants to kind of hold on to that in a steadfast way, that same belief as his father, that, whether it's as a representative of Rwanda, that it's a sort of one united Rwanda, and those kind of things. I think he always kind of holds on to that same early belief from his childhood, right from his father, that he's trying to keep alive in him, probably. So I think there's also a bit of that, again, I don't even know if that's so much naive, really, at that point, as much as it is a matter of principle, that he's going to sort of carry on that same sort of stance that his father had. He argues sort of perpetually that point of, and he questions it too. He questions whether his father should have or should not have or whatever, but he kind of continues to argue that point, that that's what his dad wanted, what he sort of still kind of believes.
What did you guys think of Roger? Like, I don't know.
The anti-JP. Not as an anti, but like he's the other direction that JP could go. He's that other way he could take himself.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if he would have been much more like Roger if he just didn't have running. that was Roger's identity, was as an RPF, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus, there was always a very clear direction in which JP was going to head in. So, it's interesting.
But it was also interesting how similar they were, sort of in the vein of the question of, like, what extent of activism do you take up? He was similar to JP in the sense that he wasn't like, he just had this like quiet confidence about him that he was gonna do exactly what he thought needed to be done. There's obviously, by the end ways you can sort of question the validity of it or morality of it, but yeah, it seemed like they were similar in that sense of having this like quiet confidence to pursue their goals, in distinction from like B and the university groups that were sort of out in the streets more and sort of more visible in society.
Any other thoughts about Roger? So this is kind of a practical question, but I mentioned it at the outset that I kind of felt like when I first read it, it took me a while to get into it and like understand all the different characters and remember the names and the language is different. Did anybody else feel that way, or?
Definitely kept my smartphone nearby the first quite a few chapters and did a lot of research as to what words meant. I probably spent, after about 2 chapters, the night just reading up Wikipedia on Rwanda, the history of Rwanda. Wait, what's going on? Where's Lake Kivu and all those other things? It was definitely kept the smartphone nearby and different words, wondering what different words meant.
Definitely.
So brilliant segue. Again, I want to get back to that question. The author went to this conference, and a guy, from what I understood, a guy from Rwanda stood up and was like, "Don't you feel silly writing fiction about this heinous atrocity of the Rwandan genocide?" First of all, can you imagine the author up on a panel and getting asked that question? Just be like, But then I thought about that. But Jonathan, what you were just saying is read this historical fiction book, and that leads you to start to research the country, start to learn more about it, start to get interested in the cause and what's going on now in the country. I think, Deborah, you've said that too, and that had the same effect on me, where I didn't know anything about the genocide, which is sad. I was 12 to 14, 15 when this happened, and I had no idea. And so that just floored me that this took place and millions of people died. And so reading the book had this effect on me, and it actually led me into discovering Janji and buying Janji product. And so I wanted to talk about that. What?
I didn't know that was like the impetus.
Yeah.
It was for me too.
What?
After I read this book, I started Googling Rhonda and running, and I found the marathon I want to run, and I found Janji.
Wow.
Wow.
That's so cool.
So you
I
gotta
found
send commission
from
checks
Kenya.
pretty often. Sorry. So yeah, talk about that a little bit about fiction, and then what that made me think of when I read that article was running, something that I struggle with sometimes because it feels very selfish. It's very self-involved time, and it takes away from family time or job sometimes. How do I justify that in a world where there's all these problems and things? And then hopefully Dave could maybe tell us a little bit about that question in his mind and how that led him to maybe take some action. So let's start with, just jump in.
Well, if you look at that article she wrote, you look a little further down, I like what she said, how for her 2 biggest passions was writing and social justice. And it just felt like a natural marriage for her to combine those 2 things. And she kind of, the way she worded it in the article was just that she was born that way. She was born a writer, and she was raised in an environment of concern about social justice. So it's kind of a matter of why wouldn't you do that? And I think she kind of puts that right into the book itself. I think that's kind of what JP is. He's born this way, and that's what he's gonna do. You know what I mean? It's not like it's sort of a choice kind of thing. I kind of like that she kind of embeds herself into what kind of comes through in the novel. Very genuine.
I didn't get a chance to read that whole article, but I was sort of wondering. I wonder if the question from the Rwandan man sort of came from the direction of, well, I don't know if he read the book or not, but JP definitely dealt with a ton of tragedy. But I was about to say something that might give up the ending, so I'm not going to say it. But
Good man, good man.
I guess what I'm wondering is maybe some of the frustration might have been, is this an accurate portrayal for all Rwandans, right? Or did a lot of people have it worse than he had it? So I don't know if that factored into the question, but I thought that could have been something somewhere from where that question was coming from, right? Is this does this show how bad it shows that it was bad, but does it show how bad it was for most Rwandans?
Yeah, and maybe there was this sense that the guy felt like just fiction is inherently kind of light and fluffy, whereas I didn't obviously get that impression at all, that it's not just a feel-good story, obviously. It's pretty weighty and drives you to want to learn more about it. And so, yeah, it's what we think of when we think of fiction, too.
I think the good thing that comes out of it is that if you have someone writing about social justice, at least it brings awareness to more people that will read fiction.
Kind of what Janji's kind of like about, right? I mean, it's every time you wear one of those products and you're running a race with that name on it, it's kind of easy to raise a little bit of awareness.
Yeah. I mean that was kind of like the goals for us, like starting Janji. It's it's always interesting, and I don't know if she's felt any of this any backlash at all in this, but as an American white woman who has really wasn't born in Rwanda, she didn't go through this. Like, how does she have any authority at all to write on this? It's kind of interesting, but I think at sometimes Mike and I are like, all right, are we really? We take design inspiration, we work with local artists on our apparel, but we're not from Haiti. Like, we don't live in Haiti, we don't live in Kenya, we don't live in Rwanda, we don't live in Tanzania. We don't know like how bad it is, and we're like representing these countries. But I think it's almost our duty in a lot of ways to promote social justice through the things that not only do we like doing, but the things that we feel will add to society. And she certainly knew she was a good writer. She's a compelling storyteller, and she's raising awareness and understanding and getting a better sense of what it was like there than 99.9% of Americans would ever know otherwise. I think it's a great thing, and I think it's that is so tied to what we mean when we say social justice. So.
Cool.
I think that's right, and it all comes down to education, and she's educating everybody to learn from history so it's not repeated in the future, ultimately.
From what I have read since, it seems too like she was pretty accurate in the timeline and in the players portraying that. I mean, obviously, it was a Hutu majority, and it'd be really easy to just kind of blame that whole segment of the society, but she had these other characters too that showed that not just because they had Hutu heritage, they participated in this. And so I think too that just really accurate in the events when you do sprinkle in the historical pieces of it is pretty important. If you're going to try and do this, and also avoiding the broad brush kind of stereotypes or classes that you just throw the whole people that you, again, as you're saying, Dave, you don't have experience with, you weren't there. And I feel like she respected that. And again, what I've read about the course of events and how things escalated, it seems really accurate as to how she portrayed it. So,
I think going along with this and what we're talking about, Bill Clinton said that um, his biggest regret of his entire presidency was not intervening for the Rwandan genocide. I mean, these were all pretty much machetes. There was definitely um, there were definitely guns, as we saw, AK-47. But this could have been stopped. This whole thing could have been stopped with 10,000. The small of the forces, like 10,000, 20,000 UN American troops that would have gone in. And I think if we all had more of an understanding of actually what was going on when it was happening, and we had more empathy to the people on the ground, which I think this story made me feel that much closer, I think things could have been different. And that should be goal of stopping in the future.
yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that brings up that I was kind of thinking about along the way too is if we have this like historical view that history informs how we should act in the future. I mean, how do we make something like this where we're quite deeply touched by a story like this? How do we make that translate into action in the future in like a more specific way? Because we're not going to be able to get those, the vibrant story in the middle of it. So, yeah, does anyone have any ideas on, I don't know, if it's what we could do individually or at a national scale, or how do we make that transition like more specific, I guess?
I think teaching our children or just the next generation not letting history repeat itself because we're silent about it.
I have to say, I mean, just in reading, I had no idea. I mean, I knew that there was killing and mass murders going on in Rwanda, but I really am embarrassed to say when it was going on, I was in college and I heard none of this. So reading this book now is so eye-opening, and in so many ways I'm like so embarrassed that I didn't know this. So just by, I want to thank whoever picked the book because it's fantastic, and I've recommended it to just about every friend I could think of. And to address the point of her being at a panel and having that question about, it's a work of fiction and, how does that represent Rwanda? The fact that we're having this dialogue, even, among us 18 people, but I think it's imperative. And if anything, it just begs the question of, like, why isn't this being taught in curriculum in schools? Or is it? And I just don't know, but when it was going on, I was in college, and I can't believe I didn't know this at all. And that's appalling. It really is, So minimally, I agree with the point of passing it down and discussing it, and it really is, it was major, beyond major, and I'm happy to have read the book minimally.
Yeah.
I think it's also hard too. I mean, we're sort of seeing similar sort of things happening right now that aren't newsworthy. You have one member of a boy band leaving the group, and that's news. And then you have 500 women and children taken by Boko Haram, and that barely rates a mention. It's such a difficult thing to, I guess, bring awareness to as well.
Good point. Yeah.
I think a lot just comes down to, like, empathy in us, like understanding. I think one of the reasons why we saw why people in the U.S. immediately wanted to help out with the Haitian earthquake is because we were, like, Americans were just literally so close to Haiti. There were tons of tons of footage of what happened right afterward. It's only a few hundred miles away from Key West, maybe like 1,000, yeah, a few hundred miles away from Key West, and the fact that Rwanda is literally so far away, physically so far away, but it's also, it's a country that wasn't really. I think they even mentioned this in the book. It was a country that really didn't. No one had really like heard of it almost, which is sad. I mean, we should hear of all the different countries around the world, but people really didn't talk about it. People didn't really know anything about it. And so when this happened, we were like, what? Like Rwanda? And I think if we are able to find ways to just create more connections, understanding of different people who aren't, in our immediate Facebook friends or people who we don't see it in celebrity news, but people who are far away, who aren't necessarily front and foremost in our own circles. It's just, I think that's what allows us to understand and be able to take those actions when those actions really are needed.
I remember after I read the book, the first time I spent some time like on Human Rights Watch is usually a good resource. And then just trying to understand now. And that's when it was a few months, maybe 6 months ago, there was some big stuff happening in the Central African Republic, and there was some more genocide, and like things were escalating, and people really noticed about it. And then it's 4 or 5 months later, and I haven't looked at that. I don't know what's going on, and I didn't know. Back to your point, Mike. Like I didn't know. Okay, I know kind of about this, but what do I do about it? I don't know. I didn't have a good feel of like I wanted to be informed. I wanted to know where the hot spots were now, but then I didn't have a good sense, and so there's groups I think that focus on the conflict points and going into conflict and addressing that, and then there's groups like the groups of Janji supports that are more kind of trying to develop and raise the quality of life and the opportunities for people so that they don't get to these. I think so much of what fuels it is that desperation and that lack of hope and outlook on life or goals like we saw that John Patrick had. And so, when it's happening, it's about to boil over and genocide's like on the ground, I don't have a good sense of how to help that other than kind of foreign policy and stuff. But to prevent that situation from getting so desperate, I'm excited to be a part of this group, and then also know about other groups that are trying to kind of be proactive in getting ahead of the problem before it gets so desperate.
Yeah. It seems like that's the history of a lot of that's what leads to things, even like World War II, and why did the Holocaust happen? And from what I understand, it's like Germany was in a bad way after World War I, and someone was willing to come in and say, do you know what the problem is? It's these people. And if we get rid of these people, then all your problems are going to be solved. And obviously that wasn't the reason or the solution, but if people are, struggling to just get by, and it's like desperation, they want a finger to point at some solution, and I like that, like prevention and going to the root cause of things.
That's one thing they don't, and they don't. I mean, there's no reason for the author to get into this, but one of the many reasons that maybe the biggest root cause that the genocide happened was simple economic inopportunity for a huge swath of the population. In a society where you would inheritance of like a farm was broken up, there was no primogenitor. It was all of your children would get equal parts to your farm, and then the farms got smaller and smaller. People couldn't produce enough harvests for their own family. People starved. People had to move to the cities. There weren't enough jobs there. The birth rate was way too high. You had a lot of people who just didn't have economic opportunity, and they blamed it on the people who were different than them. We see that kind of over and over and over again throughout histories genocides, and it's terrible. And I think it is part of our responsibility to be able to find ways to make sure that the most disadvantaged have opportunity and have hope, and they don't resort to things that, I guess, things that desperate people resort to. So I think that's one of the small steps. I want to take every day, and if you can do it through running, it's all the more exciting.
I think it's interesting is that one of the things I love about running, and I always try and so I'm always trying to promote running in general to get people involved. I'm a coach cross country, so I have like kids that I'm trying to get into the sport. When you commit to running, that's the word, is you commit. We're a society that just doesn't commit to anything. We have Twitter, 140 characters. We have every media story is a hot story for about a couple of days, and then it's gone. And we're constantly, one fad to the next, or moving on from one thing to another. And I like running that it's such a much more solid base that when you commit to running, you really commit. It's a long-term commitment, whether you're training for a marathon, whether you're training for a race. It's not just about, all right, I do this one race. Nobody does just one race and that's it. They move on. All right, when's my next race? When's my next race? Even the people who do the couch to 5K, they might think that it might just be a one-time goal, lose that weight, but then they get that 5K, like, wait a minute, I want to do this more. And I like that the idea of running promotes commitment, and I think that then translates. The people who run, the people who are involved in running tend to be more committal people. They commit to charities, they commit to causes, they commit to learning about things and educating people about things, whether it's their children or their friends or whatever. So when people like runners are on social media, they actually keep addressing certain causes versus some people, it's like, oh, it's the fad, what was the George Clooney one? When they had the armbands for one, he was, raising money for Sudan and that whole genocide and that crisis out there. And, it's a fad for like 2 weeks to wear that armband, then it's on to the Live Strong bracelets, and then it's on to the next bracelet, the Hope bracelets and all that. And then it's all about you wear that bracelet for a week and then you move on. Same thing with the media and their stories. It's like, it's all about Ukraine. Everything's all about Ukraine for about a week. And then it's like, wait a minute, what's going on in Ukraine? Everybody, that's still going on, but nobody ever hears about it anymore. So I like running because it promotes a much more committed attitude that I think is a healthy thing for people to establish. And I like trying to grapple people into running so that they can be much more of a committed person in general.
Well said.
Okay.
So we were shooting for about an hour. We're there. I don't want it to kind of drag on, but I think, good discussion and not easy, not simple, but definitely worthwhile. Any sort of last thoughts, or do you guys want to do kind of another one to wrap up? Maybe, again, keep it the same amount of time and just have some maybe time to. I like what was shared today about resources, other books, other documentaries. We could keep doing that and then have like a wrap-up discussion in a few weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't after seeing some of the links that people posted to some other things in that on Facebook about the podcast, the other couple of other things, I'd like to try to tie in a couple of the things. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too. Thanks for setting all this up, Scott. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, this was great.
Really appreciate you guys recommending it. This is
I'm trying to lighten things up a little bit.
This is great. Really appreciate you guys setting this up. It's fantastic.
Oh, look, the Oberon is out.
Some good Michigan beer.
That's right. It's sweet.
This just opened up a whole new world. We're going to go for another hour now.
And now that I figured out the video portion, I think we should.
I gotta head out. It was really great, guys. Thank you so much, and look forward to talking to you soon. What?
Feel free to come. Stop it.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Okay. You guys are awesome. Have a good night.
All
All
right.
right. See you
Thanks.
guys.
Nice meeting you guys.
Bye.
Enjoy Greece, Scott.
Bye.